Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to the Croydon Business Webinar. We're back with you this morning ahead of all of the majority of the non-essential retail shops opening on the 15th of June. And over the past few weeks, really, 10 weeks or so, we have been bringing you the latest advice and guidance, both from a business perspective, but also if you're someone looking to come into Croydon, what are the changes that are going to be needed and what is being put in place by the various people responsible for keeping Croydon open for business. And this morning, as always, I am joined by a group of people that can hopefully answer your questions. So with me this morning, I have Carol Squires, Head of Economic Development at Croydon Council. I've got Ken Burgess, who runs both a business in New Addington, but also runs a New Addington bid. I've got Simon Cripps, again, a business owner, but also the person responsible for keeping Purley open and safe in terms of the business improvement district in that area, and Matt Sims, Chief Executive of the Town Centre Croydon Business Improvement District. So this morning we've got people that can hopefully answer your questions, and if we can't answer them this morning, then we can take them and get the right answers from you. We are obviously in a critical phase now. We're just 5 days away from June the 15th, and there's a lot of work that's been happening across the borough in terms of ensuring that all the necessary health and safety guidance is taken into account, the necessary infrastructure changes are happening, and also the necessary confidence messaging is in place to ensure that people, once they decide to return to work, once they decide to open their businesses, that we can give a confident message about Croydon being ready and open to do business again. So I'm sure that many of you will have a lot of questions, and hopefully we're going to hear those this morning. Please do use the next hour as an opportunity to tell us what your concerns are. They might be particular to your business. They might be a question related to how you're feeling about coming back in to shop or to work. Or it might be more of a logistical question about what you can and can't do. So please do talk to us this morning. And as always, there's a couple of ways to do that. We do have the Q&A button, and that's where you can put your question and then I can ask it on your behalf. If you do want to ask that question yourself, you can raise your virtual hand and then I can bring you into the conversation if appropriate, and you can ask that question in person. But you can also chat to us this morning, and you'll see on the chat function that we already have a couple of things that have gone into there with some links that our panelists have put forward for you. So we will be using that chat button to keep you informed, but you can also use that chat button to chat to us, or maybe just comment on some of the conversations that we're having this morning. So without further ado, I'm going to go over to Carol from the London Borough of Croydon. Now, Carol, obviously there's a huge amount of work that the whole team there have been undertaking over the last 12 weeks, but probably never more so than now. I mean, it is a momentous task that every local authority is going through at the moment. Just talk us through, first of all, I suppose, let's just start off with finance, because that's been a key focus in terms of bringing money in to the right businesses. And we know that the discretionary grant fund is now available. So perhaps you can give us an update on that to begin with. Thanks, Carol.
Yeah, so I'm very pleased to say that our discretionary grant fund is open. So this is £2.87 million, which sounds like an incredible amount of money, but actually the reality is, when you look at the fact that probably around about 10,000 of our businesses haven't received any support, it's not a lot of money. We have tried to mobilise as quickly as possible to make sure that the scheme is there, ready and available, and also to make sure that it is as easy as possible to apply for this fund. There is evidence that you need to submit alongside that. So I'm going to put in the chat the actual application link so that you can all get it. And I would encourage people who haven't already had a grant from the rates team to apply for this. We are prioritising businesses. So if you are a business in a shared workspace, if you are a business in a unit with a rateable value under £51,000, if you are a social enterprise, or if you are a market trader, those are the businesses that we are prioritising at the moment. Once we've got through all of those applications and if there is any funding that is left over, we will then look at how to distribute the rest of that funding. The reality is we don't expect there to be any funding left over because we think we'll be inundated with applications. So please do get your applications in as quickly as possible. The evidence we're asking for is basically you have to prove that you've had a loss in your income of over 40%. And so what we're asking for is a P&L sheet, a balance sheet, and some bank account details. Now I know that some of it's not as easy for some businesses actually, and a lot of businesses may not have their P&L sheet ready. It might not be back from the accountants yet. So what I would say to you is my team really wants to distribute this funding. They're going to work with you to work on the evidence. So we're not going to just decline you. You're going to get a phone call. You'll get suggestions of how you can prove the evidence of what we're looking for. We will need a lease to show that, or rental agreement, or whatever it is to show that you have a property cost. But talk to us. So apply. If there's any discrepancies in the evidence, we will give you a call. We will work with you. We want to get this funding out to the people that need it as quickly as possible.
Is it a first come, first serve? So is it a question of a Scrabble to get your thing in, get your application in, and then actually you just work through them and in, you know, is it fairly arbitrary in that respect, that the sooner you get it in, more likely you are to get the money? Yeah.
So Croydon has deliberately scoped our grant fund so that we can have more grants, and so it touches more businesses. And there is a certain amount of discretion. I say certain amount of discretion because the government did advertise who they wanted the criteria to fit before we had scoped any kind, or the boroughs had scoped their own criteria. So for us, it's really about getting to as many businesses as possible. Which is why we've lowered the grant. So our grant scheme covers 3 types of grants: £5,000, £2,500 and £1,000. And that will depend on your property costs. All of the information is on our website, and we do have humans that you can talk to and an inbox that you can email if you're not sure, because we think it's really important that we walk you through this.
Can I ask a question about those property costs? Are you saying that you have to have property costs?
You would need to have a property. Yeah, you need to have property costs. So if you have a property cost of £1,000 or over a month, you are entitled to a £5,000 grant. If it is under £1,000, you'd be entitled to £2,500. And if you are a market trader, it is £1,000.
Okay, so it doesn't obviously apply to a market trader who doesn't have any property cost.
That's a fixed one.
So that's a fixed one. Okay.
Yeah, and you have to be a market trader that's trading 5 days a week in our borough.
Right. Okay. So there's quite a lot of different nuances to this, as you would expect. In terms of the speed that you're hoping to turn this around.
So it's really key that we get it out as quickly as possible. We've got a team of 25 working on it at the moment. We have, once your application is submitted, the assessment will be done within 20 days and you will get an answer within 20 days. I would hope it would be done quicker, but it really depends on the amount of applications that we have coming through, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got a question coming already, actually. From Tom from MyPT about personal trainers who are all freelance. Many have been ineligible for the government self-employment scheme. Are they eligible for this?
So they are eligible if they have if they've gone on a self-employment scheme. They are eligible if they have a property cost, a business property cost. If they don't, they're not eligible. So it is around the fixed property cost, I'm afraid, Tom. So Tom would be, because he's got the fixed property there. But what I would say to Tom is, if he would like to have a look at individual funding for his trainers, then we would most happily look at that with him and signpost to funding as available.
Okay, that's great. I mean, I think this is really important, that those that are listening, you're all going to have your own personal situations, and there's obviously a lot of different nuances to this. It's not that straightforward, in that it's that, you know, And this is what this morning is about. This is about trying to answer these questions directly for you now. So if you are watching and you have a specific question, don't be frightened about putting it in the chat or putting it in the question. That's why we're here today, to pick up on these things.
Absolutely.
This is really at the end of, at the end of a fairly long process that we've all gone through in terms of the various loans and grants that have been made available, and the suggestion would appear that we are coming to the end of that. That there is a limit. There's a limit, I guess, how much government funding there's going to be available. I want to just bring Simon in just on this subject, because on behalf of your businesses, is there any questions that you want to ask about this in terms of what Carol has said?
Well, it appears to be quite a tough, stringent set of rules for people to apply to, because there's obviously a certain amount of businesses we have that have gone above the 51,000 threshold that aren't going to be available in this first tranche. We've got a certain amount and quite a few that I think across the borough this is going to affect is businesses that have been below the kind of £8,000 to £12,000 rateable value and have had full business rate relief, but haven't updated their details from the previous owner. And these have all been affected by, massively been affected by this COVID-19, but aren't applicable to any of the grants available going on. And as far as I gather, that's still going to be the case, is it? Or just apply and see if you can get it?
So for this fund, as long as they were trading on the 11th of March or before, they are entitled to it for this fund.
They're not entitled to it if they've received any other funding. Is that correct?
So if they had received the grant funding previously, they're not entitled to it. This is really for the businesses that have missed out on the previous round of funding. And let's make no mistake, businesses are going to miss out on funding. And we recognise that, and we don't think it's fair. We know that this is not enough funding to touch our business community, and so we continue to lobby on behalf of our businesses to get more funding. Yeah.
And a question that's come in, when you say property cost, does it include rented property?
It does. Rented property, leases, membership. So if you were inside a co-working space and you're a member, it's that kind of stuff.
It would still apply.
It would apply.
Because co-working, and I know there's been a separate group that's been meeting around co-working spaces in Croydon, but I know that's a big concern, isn't it? That the potential loss of those co-working spaces could be, quite significant and actually quite damaging long-term to the economy of Croydon, because we do need those small workspaces to be available and open. Probably even more so after COVID than before, because many businesses will be downsizing and looking at an opportunity to have a touchdown point.
And we know that many of those businesses inside co-working spaces missed out on the original grants, and so we have prioritised that group inside this grant.
Okay, so it is very, very much trying to focus some additional help there. Okay, that's great. Just coming to you, Ken, on this in terms of, just before I come to Ken, we have just launched our weekly confidence survey. If you could take a couple of moments to answer that would be much appreciated. Coming to you, Ken, in terms of any specifics around sort of finance and grants that you want to just bring to the table now from New Addington.
Well, largely, most of my members received the grant in the first instance after several trials and tribulations, which we're all aware of. There were a lot of hiccups. Probably one company falls outside the £51,000 category, and that is concerning us. Because again, their class is a relatively small business, small to medium enterprise. There are a few, but they're the much larger companies. But generally speaking, I was pleased with the way that the council responded to the applicants. There were hitches, but we got over those, and that was as a direct result of direct communication with the council. So we were pleased in the end that the vast majority of our members actually received the grants that they were eligible for.
Great, that's good to hear. Carol, will you pop the link in the chat in terms of what people need to do on this. Now, if you're watching and you've got a question on this, do bring it forward to us this morning. But equally, be aware that Carol and her team are available to pick up any particular things. Going to come to you, Matt. We know that you have been very much behind the Raise the Bar campaign and the whole issue of the hospitality sector, particularly being over 51,000 and not having any funding. I know there's not a particular update on this, but just more generally in terms of the town centre and what you're seeing in terms of the businesses in the town centre at the moment with funding.
Well, I think not just the town centre, but across the UK there is desperation and a real need. And I think, you know, you make the point about government will reach a point where they have to turn the tap off. There is very little that they can do. There's been a great deal of funding so far, and again, as Carol said, you know, lots of people will miss out. I think from the Raise the Bar campaign point of view, there's contradictions really. One is that a small business is defined up to 49 individuals. Now, the small business rate relief, which is where the 51,000 rateable value comes from, was pre the rate revaluation in 2017, and therefore it's not reflective. So we're in discussions with Bays and with Minister for London, Paul Scully MP. But you know, we have to look at what we're asking government for, but we also need to have a look into the future in terms of what recommendations would we make as a campaign in terms of how government would deal with this going forward if something like this arose again.
Okay, I have a question actually, Carol, from someone. I think we know the answer. Would the 5,000 grant have any impact on any potential funding should it come in via the Raise the Bar initiative? Well, that's very much a big if at the moment. I'm guessing your advice would be go for it, apply for it, because we don't know.
Go for it, apply for it. Funding is so limited, it's not worth hanging around. If you can get something that will help support your business, just go for it.
Yeah, okay, that's great. So I want to move on to the fact that in 5 days' time, on the 15th, the borough will hopefully be reopening for business, and many of our shops and offices in the high streets, well, many of our offices are already open, but the impact of particularly the retail sector more fully opening on the 15th. And I want to move on to that now, because I think we all want to know what is being planned, what we can expect, and as businesses, what we should be doing if we haven't done it already. So again, I think coming back to you in the first case, Carol, from a bit of an overview from the council's perspective, I know we've heard talk of, you know, road closures and wider pavements and the impact on public transport. What's the sort of latest that you can share with us on that?
So first of all, I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of the stakeholders that have worked with us to shape the programme going forward. And my apologies, because I'm in business support, so I'm going to briefly talk about this. I'm sure my colleagues in transport could give a much more in-depth analysis of what's been going on. But really, it's about opening not just our own town centre, but district centres across the borough, who are really important to servicing the local needs in a safe way. A safe way for businesses, a safe way for residents, looking at, you know, how do we support people within social distancing, working with TfL, working with our bids, making sure that we pull it all together so that we've got something that businesses can understand what their responsibility is, and that the council are fulfilling all the things that we need to do to make sure that we've got a happy, healthy environment for everybody, really. So, yeah, a huge thank you to those partners that have worked with us on that. I know, and I'm just going to switch screens. So there's been a hell of a lot of stuff going on with my colleagues going through, and that sort of works around, you know, first of all, social distancing arrangements and what is that actually going to look like, and what does that mean. So, you know, we've worked quite closely with the bids, and a huge thank you to Matt, by the way, and his team for all the business engagement they did and the mapping that they did for the town centre, understanding what businesses are looking at being open, talking to businesses and signposting to things like PPE. So if any business is sitting here today and they're not sure about PPE, there is a page on the council website, which I'll put in the chat in a minute, that can direct you to places where you can buy it at a reasonable cost. So hopefully that also helps as well. But, you know, when we're looking at social distancing arrangements, we've looked at things like pedestrian routing, traffic management planning, the whole parking strategy, public signage so that people understand what the responsibility is. I won't talk about the volunteers because I think Matt should talk about that. But really sort of having guidance and support. Also, you know, this is going to come in 2 stages. So we've got the first stage that's coming where we're sort of slowly reopening all that kind of non-essential, and I hate that word, non-essential retail, because, you know, for those of us that are desperate to get back to the hairdressers, quite frankly, it is very essential. But it is, you know, and then the next stage looking at the opening of our pubs and restaurants and you know, the evening and nighttime economy, which is so essential when you're looking at that vibrant sort of town centre economy. There are going to be no full road closures, I know that, and we have tried very hard to make sure that we can engage as much as possible with businesses on where we're going to need to do things like maybe close off some parking spaces to ensure that social distancing can be met. But, you know, we know this is going to be quite difficult, and we also know that it's all about communication. So you can have the most wonderful plan put in place, but we'll be constantly analysing, looking at what is working. And so what I would say to you is our licensing and enforcement people are there to support and help you as well, signpost you to information, help you look at what the art of the possible, what you can and can't do. And if you're not sure, please do ask us. I'm going to chuck it over to Matt a bit. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it is important to stress that it is the responsibility of the business owner to ensure that their business is safe, and that covers also their ability to manage their queues external to their premises.
Absolutely, it is the responsibility of the business to do that.
Yeah.
And we can offer advice and guidance. And I know Matt has pulled together a wonderful document and guidelines, a signpost, a toolkit that can help you do that, which is available for everyone across the borough. Is that right, Matt? Fab. So it allows you to ask questions. But again, if you're not sure and you want to ask a question, ask us. We'll signpost you.
Great. I think, yes, Matt, you are back with us. I think for a moment you might have frozen on me, but I think you've come back in. Can you hear me, Matt? Are you with us? Great.
Let's stay very still.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, move. Can you give us a bit more of an update? Because I know you've been working really hard. I am actually just going to share your document on share screen. If you want to, I'm going to do that for you now, I think.
Which one are you sharing?
I'm sharing the Croydon Town Centre guidance for queue management.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to just talk us through what you've been up to?
Yeah. So and what I would say, Catherine, if you can take a step back to the COVID-19 hub on Croydon Bid for me, that'd be really useful.
Okay.
So just generally in terms of working through the town centre, it is far harder to reopen a town centre or a district than it is to lock it down, especially on a social distancing point of view, in terms of all of the measures that are being put in place. There is a fundamental aim here. We have to make sure that the experience is a safe one. We are not at the moment. We are not in that position of being able to attract in thousands of people into the town centre. All we are doing at the moment is taking tentative steps whereby we can create an environment whereby people feel confident and safe to be able to shop in maybe a greater way than they did before in the past 3 months. And so we've been working with the local authority and others in terms of being able to put in place a lot of those steps, from social distancing markers, but also, and as you referred to before, the kind of the queue management, also the practical tips and the help and the guidance and whatnot. So we've developed and kind of improved a COVID-19 hub, which Catherine is taking you through at the moment. And there are some key points on here, guidance, and if you scale down for me, Catherine, that'd be great. So there's a reopening document, the third one there, which is the Reopening Croydon Town Centre, which is a practical guide. And that provides kind of a step-by-step approach in terms of things for you to consider as a business, those planning considerations. And again, if you scale all the way through, it's got the government advice and whatnot. I'd strongly advise to have a look at that. It provides you information in terms of what you need to consider. You have to have a checklist on your business to say that you are COVID-19 compliant. And there are some useful other bits and pieces. And again, my head of ops, Sean Webster, has done a fantastic job on this. So please have a look. And if we go back, Catherine,
yeah,
just to kind of take you through, there are other key points on that hub as well. Queue management is one. And again, I think it's important to say that as a business, yes, you are responsible for your queue. There's no doubt. There's queuing guidance on the website just here, and it provides about 18 or so steps, I believe, in terms of things that you need to do as a business in terms of being able to responsibly manage that queue. That includes having staff outside with your queue and managing that queue, and yes, it's extra resource, but it is needed. Croydon Bid, and if we just stay there, Catherine, if you scale up a bit for me. Croydon Bid is going out into the town centre this week alongside Croydon Council, and we will be stenciling keep distance queue markers into the town centre at the key pinch points. Croydon Bid, and I know in Purley you've done this as well, in the sense of being able to provide internal floor decals as well for businesses that need them, and again, they're available for businesses. And that just provides that kind of guidance. So I think the other point to bring up, if you go back to my hub for me, is the toolkit. So if you click on the toolkit, and again, this is available for everybody. So businesses, and generally speaking, the smaller business rather than the larger business, they also need to be COVID-19 compliant, and they need to be able to display signage and have that social distancing asset or creative asset in place. So this document, if you scale down, that's our checklist. If you scale down, we've produced all of the posters for you. So anything that you need, generally within a business, we've got it. Entrance, exit, this way, that way, whatever it needs to be. And again, any business can download that. They can print it off. They can put it into their business. Do as you will. And it just provides a little bit of help going forward.
Great. I think that's really helpful. I'm going to come to Simon, because I know, Simon, that you have done similar. I'm going to stop sharing, trying to multitask you. Okay, so coming to Simon in terms of what you've been doing in Purley, because I know you've had a similar approach in terms of some of the stuff that you're doing. I think I've lost. Is Simon still with us? I can't. There you go. Hi, Simon. Are you able just to update us on what you've been doing in Purley on this?
Yeah, I mean, much like Matt's been doing there, obviously we've got to make sure that we've got the confidence with the town centre users and can demonstrate that confidence. So like Matt, we've got hundreds of these forms printed out with the 5 steps that the government recommends with regards to carrying out a risk assessment, making sure there's a hand washing policy, making sure if possible people can work from home, that there's distancing of 2 meters apart, or steps in place if you can't be 2 meters apart. And it's our job to make sure that the businesses take this, adhere to this, and demonstrate that they are doing all those processes. And that'll give people the confidence to come back into the town. We've also been providing a lot of PPE support for the businesses. So which ones are open that we can support? So the floor decals, whether that is the 30 centimetre, keep 2 meters apart. We've got about a mile of 2 miles of tape, I think, that we've got around the town for social distancing. Face guards, we've got lovely branded Pearly Bid face masks as well.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, I know. And also, very importantly, to protect both visitors and the shop owners, we've been providing the sneeze guards as well for the stores. So it's quite a great expense for the bid, but then we're not having a food festival of any sorts like that. So that's been reinvested into making sure that everyone is kept as safe as reasonably possible. The list of kit that the bid is providing for the members within Pearly just goes on. So hand gel, posters, we're doing the floor stencils, various different stickers. As much as we can do reasonably to support our members, we are doing, and to support the business visitors as well.
Lovely. Coming over to you, Ken, because I think you said that about 30% of your businesses in New Addington have been trading throughout, so you've got quite good experience of maybe some of the issues that people are needing to face. So what's your take on all this? What's going to happen from the 15th in New Addington?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we're the smallest bid in the country, so we're not quite as sophisticated as the other bids. But having said that, we've communicated extensively with our members right from the word go. And yes, approximately a third of our members have been trading consistently. So we've got a lot of experience in how to manage your shops and how to manage particularly the customers coming into the shops. We've recently issued guidance to all our members again with respect to how to handle them based on our experience. And the first thing that we point out is you have to put obviously all your health and safety measures in place and make it clear to your customers what you're doing by the appropriate signage. But more important than that is making sure that your staff are fully informed of the reasons why all these are in place. Primarily, it's to protect their health and safety in the first instance. And in so doing, they're going to help protect the health and safety of their customers. That in itself means that the staff become so much more assertive in controlling the management of throughput of customers, which is going to be very, very important. What we've found is the vast majority of our customers are very compliant, understand fully the need for the rules and regulations that we now put in place. You're going to get queues. You have queues. People don't like queues. It's a British trait. We introduced the damn thing, but people by and large don't like queues. You then get the other groups. One are those who really don't understand what's going on, and they've got to be guided and shown what to do. So there is a degree of instruction there. And then the very tiny, tiny minority who absolutely will not follow any rules at all. They're the ones who can create problems. These are the ones you've got to be very assertive with. They do not understand. They don't accept it. They don't accept the fact that they're putting everybody else's lives at risk by acting in an unsociable manner. So this is where your staff are extremely important in the whole process. They've got to protect their own health and safety. And by demonstrating that's what they're doing, I believe they're engendering a sense of confidence in the customers. We need customers to come back into our shops, and we need them to feel safe. So by doing all these things that my colleagues have already described, but primarily making sure that your staff are in control, because you're, as a business, you are in control, and you must maintain that control. And I think that's the advice that we would hopefully pass on, given our experience over the last 12 weeks.
Yeah, and I think that's really crucial. It's going to feel very different to anybody coming back into any high street. You know, and it's going to feel potentially quite alarming. You know, you're going to have lots of people with face masks, you're going to have all this tape, you're going to have all this social distancing. How do you make it a pleasant experience? And then, as you say, for the staff, it's almost like a whole new skill set in terms of how they manage a queue of people. And
it's actually quite stressful for the staff as well. Initially, you know, it was a new thing to cope with, but as time progresses, you only need the odd one or two awkward customer that creates disproportionate fear factors for everybody, and that it is stressful. So do bear that in mind. It's not going to be necessarily easy. So talk to your staff, encourage them, keep them happy, keep them on your side, because they need to feel safe themselves, absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's really important. There's a question that's come in relation to the new Addington market traders, just to pop back briefly to this issue of the discretionary grant. Your market traders have just restarted back on New Addington Parade, but they're not in the borough 5 days a week. Is that right? So that would mean that they're not applicable?
I believe that is correct, yes. A lot of them travel around, not just the borough, but around London. So I can't give you a definitive answer on whether many of them are actually trading within Croydon for those 5 days.
Can I just come back briefly? That this would mean that they wouldn't be applicable. The only market traders, presumably in Croydon, that were applicable are Surrey Street market. Is that right?
So if they are, I mean, basically, you could trade at Surrey Street for 2 days, go to New Addington for 1 day, but you would have to be, so the criteria is 5 days a week in the borough, I'm afraid. And whilst I know that for some businesses and traders that would be really disappointing, we are very keen to make sure that the funding is used to the maximum for the economic impact inside Croydon.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. Matt, I'm going to come to you because this idea that Ken has raised, which is such an important one, about how do you make the town centre and any high street in the borough and beyond feel a pleasant place to be. I know you've got some plans in place around volunteering, so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we have. It's look, I think that what comes out of all of this is potential to create, innovate, shape, and do something a little bit different. The Olympic hosts that we had in London in 2012 were one of the greatest assets that we had. We come out of COVID-19, we reopened tentatively, and we need to build a bit of confidence and a little bit of trust in the area in which our customers are using, and also our businesses and the employees. And so we've developed the Croydon hosts. And what's interesting about it is it's a tri-partnership between the private sector, the public sector, and the third sector. So Croydon Bid, Croydon Council, and Croydon Voluntary Action. And what we've done is put together a project whereby volunteers will be out on the streets in the town centre in bright pink tabards, providing that reassurance and that kind of confidence. So if you need information, advice, and guidance, they are there to support you. They are there to provide a welcome smile back into the town centre, because we want you back. I mean, there's no question of it. But also their role is to provide that messaging. We are still early days. We're still waiting for the hospitality sector to open. We can't forget that. And so the ambassadors, the Croydon hosts, will also provide that kind of reinforcement of the message that we are socially distancing still. And I think what it will do is just convey a little bit of confidence in people to come back into the town centre, to use it a little bit longer than they have done before, and just provide a pleasant smile. And I hope personally that it will be a legacy into Croydon, whereby it can get bigger and stronger.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute, so apologies for that. Croydon's always had a big heart, hasn't it? And there's always been a great sense of community spirit and engagement and involvement. So how does someone that's listening, or maybe someone watching might know somebody, how do they go about becoming a host? What do you do for that?
So we're astounded by the level of desire from people in Croydon to volunteer. The numbers are staggering. For those that want to volunteer through Croydon Voluntary Action, can go onto their website. There is, and we're waiting to receive the link for ourselves so that we can pump that out as well. But you can go to their website. You can register as part of the emergency response as part of COVID-19 with CVA, and they will do the necessary. So if you want to become a Croydon host, please, we'd love to have you. I think what Croydon demonstrates at this point in time is A, the community that we have, but also the partnership. We all work so very closely together, and you know, we have our own focuses sometimes, our own aims and objectives, but certainly in this point in time, and you know, dealing with a crisis such as this, we found that the partnerships work much closer together, and in such a proactive way. So again, you know, if you want to be a host, please register yourself for it, and Croydon Voluntary Action will be in touch.
Great. So let's move on then to who is actually, in terms of, you know, let's take next Monday, the town centre opens. In terms of, you know, if there is an issue and you're a business on a high street, and you know, it doesn't go as smoothly as you would like, and that might not be down to your fault, it might be down to the fact that, as Ken's rightly said, not all the customers are perhaps going to be as honourable of the distancing as is necessary. You know, who is going to help with all this? Are there going to be additional police officers? Are they going to be, you know, how is this all really going to work? And I mean, okay, you've got a volunteer force, but they're clearly only volunteers.
That's the $64 million question. In terms of, I think if we kind of step back a little bit, none of us have ever done this. This is absolutely brand new. Will there be teething problems? Absolutely, 100% there will be teething problems. It will take a week or two, I think, for the town centre and also for the districts to bed down in the way that we want them to bed down. There will be changes to the way in which the logistical and the infrastructure is laid out, because it's all very well sitting in a meeting and working through maps and whatnot, but until it actually plays out in the town centre, you don't actually really know whether that's going to work 100%. I think, you know, the important thing, and again, Ken alluded to it to a degree, is not to allow the frustrations to get to you too much. We are making very tentative steps to reopen. In terms of working through those frustrations or slight annoyances, is to communicate with the bid companies, to communicate with the local authority, and we will do our utmost to be able to work those through. I can only say for the town centre that as soon as the town centre opens next week, my team will be around. They will be engaging with businesses to make sure that they have what they want. But it's also important to remember that although the reopening date is the 15th of June, not all businesses will open. And you saw from the news yesterday that Primark will not open their stores until they are satisfied that it's safe. So that's one large store in the town centre which is out of the equation. So I foresee the town centre being open around about 60%.
Okay, are you able to share any plans around our two shopping centres, so Central and Whitgift? Do you know how they're going to cope? You know, what measures are being put in place? So we're going to have to queue to get into the shopping centre in the first place, and then queue to get into a shop. Do we know how they've handled that?
Yeah, so I can share briefly some of their operational plans, but just kind of verbally. So both shopping centres will open on the 15th of June. In terms of the entrances, all entrances will be fully open, and pedestrian flow through into the shopping centre. They will obviously manage that flow of customer traffic in and out of the shopping centres. And above all, and this goes back to every decision that every business is making at the minute, is making sure that the areas upon which you're working is safe and secure. And if you can't do that, then you need to make adjustments. The opening hours, and again the core trading hours, that will be operated for Central and Whitgift Monday to Saturday, 9 a.m, 10 a.m for Central to 6 p.m, and on Sunday 11 a.m to 5 p.m. I think some of the questions that have come up in terms of, you know, toilets, will the toilets be open? Yes, the toilets in both centres will be open. There will be hand sanitizer stations positioned on exit from the facilities. And then in terms of the mall seating, and this comes to more the infrastructure and the arrangements within the shopping centre themselves, all seating is going to be removed. Food and beverage operators will not trade with external mall seating. Okay, and then just a final part really on the car parks. All of the car parks will be fully open, ensuring that the capacity is considerable, but it will be reduced to what we expect pre-COVID. All right, so there won't be as many spaces, but they will certainly be open. There'll be obviously social distancing markers across the shopping centres and again in the car parks themselves. And I think what they would say at this point in time, they have a visitor information point at the Whitgift Centre that has been moved to allow for a bigger queuing space in the shopping centre. And again, the management officers themselves, and this refers more to the businesses inside the shopping centres, the management offices will be open and they are there to support all of the businesses within inside the shopping centre itself.
Okay. I've got a question that's coming in about pedestrian. So this is a busy bus stop outside the business with a very narrow footpath. What level of support? Now, I know, Carol, there's been some considerations given. I know there's no road closures, but there has been considerations given to closing certain bus stops where there wouldn't be enough room for people to queue, and I think widening of some pavements. Is there any detail around that?
So I haven't got the detail, and apologies, and I wouldn't want to comment on individual bus stops in front of people's businesses, but there has definitely been consideration. You know, this is not just a program that is being done in isolation, and I think Matt really hit it on the head. You know, this is a real sort of scheme that has pulled in colleagues from TfL, the bids, businesses, individual businesses themselves, the shopping centres, the council, across the board. Part of it is we're going to need to use some common sense. As you know, as people who go shopping, we need to use some of our common sense. There will be areas where it'd be really difficult to socially distance, actually, because you know there are areas in all of our borough that weren't necessarily built for social distancing, and we might have to take a practical common sense view. But as far as possible, we've tried to put things in place to initiate the environment that makes it as safe as possible.
Okay, so Mike is asking this question, and I guess many other businesses that have got particular questions related to their premises and the space outside their premises. This plan will be shared at some point soon. I mean, presumably there's a way they'll be able to go on and actually see what's happening in terms of bus stops, what's happening in terms of pedestrian spaces being widened. Is this a plan that's going to be shared?
So as soon as the information becomes publicly available, we can make sure that is, so that the participants are here today, we can make sure that they get that information, and we'll also make sure that it's on our website and links are sent to it. I would also say there is a business newsletter, so if you're not signed up to it, sign up to it, because we will put as much information as we can that comes through to us as quickly as possible inside that newsletter.
Okay, that's great. Matt, just the question that's come in about, well, actually Matt probably and Simon, all three, Matt, Simon, Ken, about cleanliness. You know, what's going to happen about waste removal? Obviously a big issue with COVID-19. What's happening around how to keep the streets clean?
You want me to take that first?
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay, all right. So our cleansing team comes back into the town centre on Friday. They will be doing, at the moment, 2 days per week. We, you know, our operation shut down or was suspended for a period of time. They will be working their way all the way through the town centre to bring it up to scratch in that sense. There's another point to make in the sense of from a cleansing point of view, I as a consumer, as a resident and an employee, I want to see it. I want to see it taking place. It builds my confidence as well. But at the same time, we want Croydon to look good. So the team's coming back. We're working with the local authority on a couple of other aspects as well in terms of the cleanliness of the area, and that refers to graffiti. But again, that's very much in train and all confirmed.
And business waste being, removed promptly, which is obviously a local authority responsibility. I'm assuming that's just all as normal, or is that being ramped up? Is there any?
So it is, but there's and again this is the opportunity and a kind of a long-lasting legacy. We'll all be very aware that within the town centre, bags get put out onto the highway generally when they want to put them out, and I personally I want to see if that issue can be solved. So Croydon Bid and the local authority are working on that, because we now have an opportunity to really put down some very clear guidance in terms of trade waste and how trade waste is dealt with. There are two very big shopping centres that have access points for trade waste and the like, and we are working that through at the moment. You won't see any in terms of major upheaval. You won't see any of that. A lot of the detail is behind the scenes.
Okay, that's great. Simon, Ken, do either of you want to add anything to that about your district areas? Simon, come to you first.
Yeah, we're constantly looking to ensure the cleanliness in the area. Only this morning we've been reporting about 5 different bits of graffiti to keep the place neat, and also speaking with the council in targeting certain bus stops as well for a deep clean that I think is in progress. It's also making sure that moving forward that the town is still a pleasant and nice place. So we are in discussions with regards to new green initiatives and planters and making the place look nice, and a couple of other things of there's some artwork going up, and just a few things to make sure that it is a welcoming town despite all the doom and gloom that's going on around it. And we're looking for a nice little initiative coming up. I think you mentioned it to us, Catherine, this monster safari. Again, it's a contactless way of getting people to come into the town and to engage, but not to get too close. So it is about trying to make sure that the town is a nice place to be despite all of what's going on at the moment.
I think that's a really important point, and I know Ken, something that
yes,
that you would, I'm sure, agree with in terms of.
Indeed, yes.
At the end of the day, this is all very operational. We're talking very operational, but actually, let's try get this message out that actually it won't be that. Oh, no, sorry, Ken.
Yes, Catherine. Yeah.
I'm not sure whether I've muted, whether I've frozen or Ken's frozen at the moment. But
I think Catherine's frozen. Can you see me? Am I visible?
Yeah.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fine. Okay. Yeah, I mean, like my colleagues, we constantly keep on top of cleanliness, and the council does a good job for us. Fly tipping is a big problem at the moment in other areas, but again, that's an issue that's ongoing. And I would say, however, in terms of confidence and cleanliness in my own business, I make sure the staff are seen actually disinfecting the doors on a regular basis, so that the customers can actually see that we are doing something about it. So in terms of as an individual business and watching cleanliness, we like to make sure that our customers are observing us actually going through the whole process. So this is all about bringing confidence into the whole situation again. That's as much as I need to say on that particular subject. Catherine's frozen.
She is.
Catherine's back again.
Apologies, temporarily managed to lose my internet connection. So I'm sure you carried on admirably without me. So don't let me interrupt.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Matt, can I just, I guess in the remaining few minutes, we did have a question around transport. I think there is a bit of an update you can give around East Croydon Station, and also there's a question that came in around capacity on trams and buses. We know that there is on the London system more widely, there is there's been some numbers that have been released about how many people you can have on a bus or London Underground. Where are we at with this from a Croydon perspective? Are you able to give?
So I guess generally guidance for business with regards to transport for London. That's also on the COVID-19 hub at croydonbid.com. In terms of transport generally, we the guidance is quite clear. You wear a face mask. Croydon's one of the most connected hubs in London with regards to transport, and we have to feel confident on the transport that we're using. The majority of us use public transport. So there's a lot of work being done on that. You still have to socially distance. And so, if you take, for example, East Croydon train station, there are considerations being actively made at the moment to ensure traffic flow into and out of East Croydon train station is controlled. It's one of the train stations that is currently being considered and looked at the moment. It has large quantities of people, not only coming into it and leaving it, but also changing trains and going into other directions. So that's also a concern. On the tram specific, and again, TfL are ramping their operation up so that they get to 100% in terms of delivery. What they can't do, in the same way that lots of other businesses can't do, is they can't have the same sort of numbers that they had before. So on the trams, they would normally at full capacity have 225 people on a tram. That's now 20, believe it or not. To socially distance, you cannot have more than 20 on a tram. TfL, and again, the same way as to the way they operate the train stations and the trams themselves, will have, and again, they already have the socially distanced markers out. There will be assistance in place, no doubt, for those travelling by tram, but also by train. So there will be a multitude of assistance, but again, the numbers are far lower than we are used to, and I think these are tentative steps. It's very early days, so don't expect too much too soon.
No, I think that's a really important message. And I guess if you're a business about to open and your employees are reliant on using public transport, whether that be a tram or a train or a bus, then clearly there's going to be some challenges around getting everybody in with that massively reduced capacity. So that maybe needs to be given some thought in terms of whether it's practical for you to reopen, whether you have to think about staggering your opening times to accommodate you're getting the right number of staff in, for the right times. And I guess none of us will know until we get to the 15th of June exactly how that's going to look. And I think that is really the message this morning, that we are 5 days away from giving this a try, and this is going to happen across the country. And what is going to be important is what happens on the 15th and beyond, and being flexible about that approach. And so on that note, we have run out of time this morning, but I want to thank everyone for taking part, for those of you watching, and also our panelists. We aim to be back in 2 weeks' time, when we will be in the middle of it, and we will know what's worked, what hasn't worked, and we will hopefully be able to give you a much better update onto the situation, and pick up some other things as well. So in the meantime, if you have questions that you want to ask, please do ask them. You can do that by going through to either the council, the bid, or indeed through to us at White Label, info@whitelabel, and we'll get you through to us, and we will try and answer those questions in the meantime. And also, if you have something that you want to bring forward for a topic for a future webinar, then also do please raise that with us. and we will do our best to accommodate that. So for now, thank you to everybody for taking part and for watching. Have a good rest of your day, stay safe, and we'll see you shortly. And please do come back to Croydon from the 15th of June. It will be worth it, and Croydon does need you. So we are open again for business. Thank you very much. Goodbye.